Welcome back to the PhoneUX Protocol series, where I am reviewing the phone based on some tests and protocols that I've put together for user experience. And on this video, we're going to be looking at the iPhone 16 Pro and see how it compares to the previous phones that we've already reviewed. So the first thing that we're going to be testing is the ergonomics. And let me tell you that the first thing I noticed when I pick up the iPhone 16 Pro, not even the Max, just a smaller one, is that it's pretty heavy. Of course, when you compare it to folding phones, it's not going to be as heavy. But when you compare it to other slab phones and, your mind kind of has the expectation, you're going to notice that it's heavier than other slab phones. In fact, I actually looked it up and it's fairly comparable. I think it's actually, it was a bit heavier than the S25 Plus, which is a 6.7 inch or so screen compared to this 6.3. That's with the use of titanium, a smaller battery, so I'm not even sure why it weighs so much, but it just does. Now with the weight, it is gonna tire you out a little bit faster, but it does give you a bit more of a premium feel. So the next thing is the pinky shelf test, and the weight comes into play here because the weight lands on the pinky. I guess you get some friction from your fingers helping you out, but it's mostly on the pinky, so you really do feel the extra weight there. But it's actually very comfortable even though it is heavy. Obviously nothing sharp, it has rounded corners, everything is super smooth. That's not where any issue is going to come from with the pinky shelf test. It's all about the weight. Some other pros though is that since this is the smaller screen, it's pretty easy to reach across and is actually not too slippery. I mean, the back glass is very smooth, and when it comes to matte is more slippery than glossy, but having this glossy Apple logo actually puts a little section where you can get some extra friction, so it actually kind of helps, and it feels very comfortable to maneuver around. And of course, this is Apple and they look at the details of everything, so this is basically perfectly balanced. So in terms of ergonomics, I'm giving the iPhone 16 Pro a 9 out of 10. It's basically as good as it gets. The next thing that we're going to be looking at is the camera speed. How fast is the camera ready for when you need it in those quick moments? And what I'm seeing here is that the camera actually launches very fast. Doesn't really matter how you launch it, it's just fast every single time. And now that they have the dedicated camera button, it doesn't matter where you are, you can instantly get to it without having to search for any sort of icon or anything. You just press it and you're already there, and it's instantly ready to take a picture. In terms of the shutter lag, it has no shutter lag. It's very fast. It shoots at 24 megapixel, which is nice, and even with that is fast. 48 megapixel, as long as you keep it in HEIF, it's actually still really fast. The only time I've seen it that it slows down is in RAW, and not even that it takes long to take the picture, it just takes a second before it's ready for the follow-up photo. As you can see, it has to process it a little bit, and there's a bit of a delay there. And also when the phone is turned off, with the screensaver on, you press the camera shutter button and it's up, and then you instantly have access to the button. You don't have to move your finger at all, which also helps with the speed. I do have a bit of an issue with the half press because I do like having the option there, but I seem to always be in a different exposure value by mistake without even wanting to. Could be a bit of an issue if you're trying to take a photo and then just say you overexposed. It's not going to be recoverable. And then the last thing I want to talk about in the camera or the speed is when trying to switch, going from photo to video, that's where it starts, so I'll be quick. But if you're looking for a specific mode, you don't have any idea where it is unless you really memorize the position, because it only shows you 2 when it's not in motion. So it could cause some delays with the whole mode selection. Alright, so when it comes to the camera speed, the iPhone 16 Pro gets a 9 out of 10. It so far has been the best one, honestly. The next thing that I'm covering is the haptics, and that provides a good feel for the phone, especially since everything is touch. You don't really get some good feedback like you did with the physical keyboard and all these different things we used to have. So having the input of the haptic input really does help. What I will say is that the haptics are good as they are out of the box from the iPhone. They provide good feedback, they feel solid, and it's overall a very good haptic feel. The one thing I would say is that it doesn't have a setting to adjust it. It's either on or off from what I've seen. So that's a bit of a limitation, because if you find it to be too strong or too weak, you can't adjust it. You have to live with what it is, And or you could just turn it off, which kind of gives you like a numb feeling whenever you're using the phone. And when typing, the haptics are really good. Honestly, it's where you feel it, but it doesn't provide any annoying vibration. Like some of them I've had that felt a little bit too strong. I've had to reduce it a little bit, and this one feels just right. You know, you feel like you're clicking something like that's not too hard. Great feedback. And then it's just overall used pretty well. It's, you know, in the similar range as how Samsung uses it. Other companies use it more and provide more feedback in certain areas, but you know, they do provide it. And so for the haptics, I will give the iPhone 16 Pro a 7 out of 10. The next thing that I'm going to be talking about is the immersion, and this is very important when you're either listening to music or watching videos. You don't want any of those distractions or anything that kind of takes you out of the moment. So starting off with the sound, the speakers, so far from the ones I've tested, it is the best one. Of course, it's expected because this is the full thickness phone, it's not a slim phone. So you get the full bass that you get from the larger speakers. And the sound is very full. You get all the highs, mids, and lows very well balanced. Like, it's a great experience. The upper speaker, as you know, as we've seen with all the other phones, the upper speakers are, you know, missing a lot of the bass, but it actually keeps up with the highs and mids really well with the lower speakers. So it provides a good like surround sound or a stereo environment. The other thing that I wanted to point out was the dynamic island. So if you keep everything in their default aspect ratio, this is one of the wide ones. I think this is like a 2:1 type of aspect ratio for this show, and it doesn't reach the dynamic island, so it's not going to bother at all in most videos. If you do the full screen thing, now the dynamic island is in the way. Obviously in this scene it's not really going to show you much. Let me lower the volume right there. So there you go. So now you have the dynamic island getting in the way if you do the full screen, but honestly you're better off in almost every phone, I think, using the default aspect ratio rather than trying to maximize it. And the next thing I want to talk about is the brightness, because the brightness is really good on these phones. I have a tough time believing all the numbers that I hear or see on these phones, like with 5,000 nits of brightness or whatever. They all seem to be very close to the same range, which I think is coming around, you know, 2,500 to 3,000 nits. That's where I see the numbers really stay. I think this is measured at 2,000 nits, but it behaves just like the other one. Honestly, it might be one of those that's kind of underrated. Honestly, you're gonna see everything perfectly fine outdoors. You know, it's just a matter of, you know, does it stay cool enough to be able to show you the super bright screen when you're outdoors. But pretty much wherever you are, you're gonna be able to see what's on the screen very clearly. So when it comes to immersion, it gets an 8 out of 10. And then the last category that I'm going to be covering is multitasking. And I don't know if Apple even knows what that is, honestly. This phone has no multitasking to speak of. I guess the closest we could get to multitasking is if you get a notification, you can swipe down, and on some of those notifications that like are for messages, you can hold on it and reply there. But again, you have to come here, or maybe you could hold it up here, you could grab it there. But it's not really a smooth experience. I would barely consider that multitasking. If someone has a way of that they know of doing that, doing multitasking, I would love to know. Let me know in the comments. Because of that, and because you can actually reply to messages, and I'm, you know, generously counting that, I'm giving it a 1 out of 10 for multitasking. And so that brings the total for the iPhone 16 Pro to be a 34 out of 50 points in the PhoneUX Protocol. So let me know your thoughts, and if you have different ratings for anything, put them up on the comments and I would love to see them and compare. Thanks for watching, and if you want to watch the OnePlus 13 and see how it compares with the rest of these phones, stick around and subscribe for the future video coming up 2 weeks after this one.